Okay, we talked about how you beat Florida in the Final Four in the first segment. I will not share the secrets with Stephen Pearl. I'll let him figure it out on his own. But we broke the code last segment. Stephen, if you want to see it, man, go back and watch it. It's there for you on YouTube the whole time. But I have game planned it, and we laid it out last segment.
Right. Jim had the whiteboard out, and he's got it handled. What is up, Coach Stephen Pearl? Welcome in. Congrats on the Final Four. I'm sure it's been a whirlwind, but what a heck of an accomplishment.
Yeah, no, it was a great week last week, and obviously all happens really fast. But obviously happy to still be playing basketball.
Man, it's crazy because coming into the tournament, people ask you guys, what seems to be wrong? Are you alarmed at losing 3 or 4? And I mean, domination up until, a little bit of that Michigan game, and then you guys ended up winning by double figures. You had Michigan State at arm's length the entire game. What's flipped from end of the season to what's going on now, or was it just what we thought? You were playing really, really good teams to end the season.
Yeah, nothing's flipped. You guys were all just panicking for no reason.
That's what we do.
And we lose at Texas A&M without our starting point guard, our best, on-ball defender, and obviously they had really good guards. We lost to Alabama at home on a last-second shot. In overtime, we lost to Tennessee in the SEC tournament. We didn't play great. So we lost to 3 really good teams, and everyone immediately starts to panic. So really nothing changed on our end. Honestly, our kids, didn't press the panic button. They just continue to trust what we do. And could we have played better? Of course. But, great teams are going to make you not look as good as what you're supposed to look like. And that's just part of basketball. If you look at the games before that, we didn't play great against Arkansas. We didn't play great against Georgia. But since we won both those games, no one was freaking out because we won, right? Obviously, as soon as you lose, though, that whole thing, it all flips. And we knew that we still had that same team was in there. Obviously, winning the SEC a week early probably didn't help. But obviously, you're not going to push off winning the league a week early just so you can play better basketball. It's just you got to take it when you can. But yeah, I mean, Alabama State didn't play well. And I thought, obviously we talked about it last week. Ryan was, me and Dylan and BP all kind of calling the guys out. Kind of flipped on a light, switch. And I thought in Creighton, thought we played really well in that game. I don't think it was talked about enough. Creighton hit 11 threes and, we still win the game by double digits. First half of Michigan, we struggled, but the last 12 minutes, looked like Auburn basketball. And then, like you said, Michigan State ends up being a 6-point game, but that game was within 9 to 11 the entire game. So, I think our defense over the last 3 games has been really, really solid and has helped us, hold some pretty interesting offensive matchups at bay for the most part. None of those 3 teams, well, if you count Alabama State, no one scored over 70 so far, but now you got a different animal in Florida, one of the best offenses in college basketball in the Final Four.
Before we talk about that game, I want to talk about maybe the best trait of this team. You can be deep and still have the same guys winning you basketball games all the time. But you guys are deep and different people step up big in different games, and that's a different kind of deep. And I just point to when Janai goes to the locker room. There's Chaney Johnson who comes in, and you don't miss a beat. The score doesn't change with Chaney out there. Mm-hmm. And if Janai doesn't have his game, like maybe in the Michigan game for the most part, or another one, there's Pettiford or there's Denver Jones. You guys have not only depth, but depth of guys who step up big at times to win you games.
Yeah, I mean, we feel like we have 7 guys on the roster who at any moment could have a big game. You look at when Janai went down earlier in the season against South Carolina, Chaney Johnson comes in the next game and scores 17 against Mississippi State. And then, we go on the road, and Tahad has a great game at Georgia. We beat 2 ranked teams that week without Janai, and come back from down 9 with, at the end of the South Carolina game. So when Janai goes down, our guys really didn't panic, didn't really miss a step because we'd been there before. So we knew that we could, rely on Chaney late in that game and get him some of the same play calls that we do for Janai to get him post touches deep. But it's been a different guy. I mean, first game of the NCAA tournament, Miles Kelly basically carries us, to a win. Chaney and Todd both played great off the bench. In round two, Tahad, Chad, and Denver all played really well when Janai didn't have one of his best games. In the Sweet 16, Denver, Janai, Tahad all played, really well. And then obviously in the Elite Eight game, Janai was who he's been all season and was just that dominant force in the game, scoring 25 points and just doing things on both sides of the ball. But you're right, Jim. It's like it could be a different guy every night, and those guys impact the game in so many different ways. So it's been our strength all year, and it's obviously going to be something that has to carry us if we want to win. Another really tough one on Saturday.
Auburn coach, associate head coach Stephen Pearl with us on the Shannara hotline. I'm going to guess the two most asked questions you're getting right now is, can you help me get tickets, and how's Janai? I do not need tickets, so I'll only ask you the second one. How is Janai now?
He'll sit out practice today. There's not a whole lot that we can do this week just in preparation. Like, got to watch a lot of film on the first matchup. Learn from the Michigan State and the Michigan games from this past week and what pertains to the Florida Scout. So it's more about getting our guys, just getting their legs back because, we played two really physical Big Ten teams in Michigan and Michigan State. And, we exerted a ton of energy on the defensive end and even the offensive end to try and obviously run our stuff, to try and execute. So, Janai's, BP said this yesterday, Janai's not going to practice today. He's going to take today off and just continue to rehab, the 7 different things that he injured on that one play. Just try and get back right as best he can. Because at this point, there's not everything we do. There's not going to be a whole lot that's new that he can't watch and see. So the most important thing is just getting his legs back underneath him. Continue to manage some of the things that are bumped up on him right now, and as the week progresses, hopefully his status does as well.
Go back to that sequence. So 10 and a half roughly left in the game. He goes down. It looked like he said, "I'm done." And then, his parents come down from the stands. His mom's crying. They all go back to the locker room. And, on the couch, I'm like, damn, like, done for today, done for the tournament. What's going on here? Then he comes back out. Like, do you even have time to have any mini conversations right there on the bench? And when he comes back out, is there any hesitation like, okay, you've been clear, but do you really need to go back in right now?
Yeah, it goes back to how we practice. Like, this happened when I was at Tennessee. I slipped on a wet spot and got a full-on concussion. BP takes the team and moves them to the other end of the floor and continues practice while I'm back there unconscious. So anytime somebody gets an injury in practice, we immediately move practice to the other end of the floor while that player is being tended to. Because in these in-game situations, you can't sit there and linger on what just happened. You have to get on to the next play because regardless of if that player is going to be back or not, obviously in the next possession, they're not going to be there. So get on to the next play quick. So for us, we bring the guys in the huddle and we immediately start making our adjustments without Janai and not really worrying about, what's going on the other end, just trusting that Clark and our trainers and Dr. Goodlet are going to obviously do everything they can to evaluate him and try and get him back. He did walk over to the bench and he looked at me. He said, I'm done. So, he obviously felt like the severity of what it was, reached the level of he wasn't going to be back in that game. Goes back into the locker room. They do all the things necessary to check. And when Doc tells him and his parents, there's nothing structurally wrong, there's nothing broken, like you're going to be okay. Janai immediately tells Clark, all right, wrap this thing up, whatever you got to do, let's go back out there. Comes out of the tunnel and, walks up to me and he said, if you need me, I can go. Dylan Cardwell then immediately raises his hand for a sub because he was busting his ass for the last 4 minutes defensively. And Janai just walks right by me and goes and checks in. So I didn't even have time to tell him, like, whoa, hold on. He immediately saw Dylan needed one and checks himself back into the game. And obviously the pop in that arena when he starts walking by me was unbelievable. And then obviously he comes down and bangs a huge 3 and the place just goes absolutely wild. So it was a scary moment, but ended up being a really cool and memorable one.
Yeah, we'll need you to write that wording down for our 30 and 30 if you guys go on and win it, because we'll need the actual phrasing for the script when we do the interview there. Stephen Pearl is with us. I want to ask in 2019, and this isn't just Auburn. Coach K, I heard him this past week talk about Elite Eight to the Final Four. He said there's a bridge from the Elite Eight to the Final Four, and the Final Four is the promised land. That's Coach K at Duke. So it's not just – that's 18 Final Fours in that program. So it's not just for those programs that have 1 or 2 or 3. Elite Eight to the Final Four, that is the promised land. So you guys have been there now 2 times in 5 tournaments. This time, did you learn something about mentally preparing your team in the first one that maybe now that you're going back there again, that you coach up not just over that bridge in the promised land? Once we get to the promised land, there's more to do there. Did you learn anything going there the first time that you may approach it differently this time?
Yeah, I think they're 2 totally drastically different situations, because last time we did this in 2019, obviously Chuma tears his ACL in the North Carolina game, and we're going into a Kentucky game where they have NBA players in PJ Washington, Tyler Hero, Keldon Johnson, Emmanuel Quickly, and then they're bringing guys off the bench like Ashton Hagans, Keldon Johnson. Well, those guys were starters, but like that team was just unbelievable. So we obviously were wanting to go win the game, but expectations weren't relatively high because we knew that they'd just beaten us by 30 at full strength a few weeks ago. Like, we just knew we had to go out there and compete and do everything we could to put ourselves in position to win a game. We did win the game. This year, I felt was way different because we felt like we knew we were the better team. Like, we knew we were better than Michigan State. We knew that if we played well enough, we could win the game. So our mindset was more so as, we're supposed to win this game. We just got to do what we need to do to go out there, execute, and win it. As far as going into, the Final Four, I think the first time you go, you're just like, you're so amazed by everything that's going on, and you're so happy to be there that, while you're still preparing for the game, like you get caught up in some things. So for us as a staff, having it been our second time, it's way more of a business as usual mindset for us. Understanding that while it's great that we're here, the job's not finished. And I think in 2019, we were so excited to have won the game and made it to the Final Four. While we still should have beaten Virginia, I think that, this week will be way more, we'll be a little more locked in, I think, in preparation for the game. And we'll be able to tell our guys, like, listen, there's going to be a ton of media. There's a ton of extra stuff that you have to do outside of basketball that we weren't aware of the first time. So I think we'll be able to prepare our guys for just the amount of things that they're going to be asked to do over the next couple of days and not be overwhelmed by it, because we had no idea going in what to even expect. And, it's like when you go to the Alamo Dome, we're there for like 4 hours, I think, and you're only practicing for an hour of it. So it's a lot of things that, you aren't prepared for the first time that I think we have a better grasp of this time, on top of trying to get your families there and trying to get your tickets right, and just all the different things that comes with advancing in this tournament. So I think us as a staff, we'll be able to have those conversations with our guys today and tomorrow and get them into a better place mentally going into the week.
You and Todd Golden are very good friends. In any other situation, I'm sure he texts you congrats, you text him congrats. What has it been like, though, when he's the actual opponent?
Yeah, I mean, I called him after the game. We FaceTimed, and I told him, if you guys hadn't sucked so bad earlier in the season, you could have been the number 2 overall 1 seed or the number 3 overall 1 seed. So then we wouldn't have had to meet in the Final Four, and we both laughed about it. No, it's just obviously it's been fun to kind of be on this journey together in the league, and us winning the regular season title, them winning the SEC tournament title, the 2 best teams in the SEC. Clear-cut 2 best teams in the SEC made the Final Four. Obviously, it sucks that we got to play in the first game. We'd rather play on Monday. But, from this point forward, I'm not going to be calling them, and, we're not going to be having many casual conversations moving forward, because obviously it's all about us, going out there and obviously trying to get a little payback for what happened earlier in the season.
He was the basketball ops guy when you guys first got to Auburn. Did that include him running to get you guys lunch occasionally?
Todd was tasked with the difficult task of winning more and spending less. So we were staying at some of the junkiest hotels in the SEC because BP was trying to save some money. And every time we're in these towns, we're driving by these Holiday Inn Expresses or Courtyard Marriotts that we used to stay at, and we're just laughing because Todd would want to stay at a nicer hotel, and BP's like, nope, too expensive, too expensive. We're not going out to eat at the nice steakhouses. Like, we're eating the hotel food. Like, we're going to spend less money while we win more. So, yeah, Todd was obviously in charge of all that stuff, all while trying to obviously having aspirations of being an assistant coach and then obviously a head coach. And kind of crazy that, he was here those first couple of years and what our program's grown to, and obviously, what he's been able to build on his own.
Also pretty wild that you guys have played all the teams in San Antonio. So on the other side of the bracket, when you look at Houston and Duke, how do you see this game playing out? How do those two match up with each other?
Yeah, it'll be interesting because obviously, I think they're both going to have a hard time scoring because Houston's obviously relentless defensively, but so is Duke. Like, they're so damn big. They got 5 guys that can switch 1 through 5, and you obviously see what they did to Alabama. Defensively, it's just a lot. And, I think while Houston's a great team defensively, I think Duke probably has the edge offensively. Houston's going to try and, limit as many possessions as possible and just junk it up as best they can. And if those shooters get it going with Houston, they can obviously hang in there as long as they need to. With Duke, but obviously you never want to count out a Kelvin Sampson coach team. He does as good of a job as anyone in our game. So I would anticipate that's an incredibly, that's gonna be a tight ball game for 40 minutes. It's just gonna be a matter of whose guards can make the most contested shots.
So do you have tickets? Extras?
I am currently sending all my friends links to our ticket office to have to pay for their tickets because tickets are so tight right now. So I got about 25 people that are trying to come down to San Antonio, and I could barely get my wife and my daughter into the building. So it's a hot ticket, but so no, to answer your question, Jim, I do not have tickets for you.
So it's back-to-back days. Barkley had none either.
Yeah, you were
yesterday.
a lot nicer than Barkley.
Yeah. Barkley was like, do not call me.
I heard part of the segment about Barkley waking up to you next to you. That was got a little interesting yesterday.
Yeah, first time he's been called. Yeah. Next level.
What are we doing? I mean,
well, you and I have only had one celebratory drink in our friendship. Barkley and I have had many drinks over the years. So.
Yeah, and from what we've seen from Barkley, not a lot of spinners.
No. So yeah. I'm a nice guy. I love friendships. So glad to count you as one of them.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, Coach, again, congrats and best of luck. We look forward to talking with you next week about how it all plays out, and hopefully you're the guys holding up the trophy at the end.
Awesome. Appreciate you guys.
All right, Coach. Thank you. Take care. That is Associate Head Coach Stephen Pearl of the Auburn Tigers with us on the Shannara Hotline, Alexander Shannara Trial Attorneys.